Everyone. Welcome, everyone. I'm Cheryl Jordan with the Dallas Central Appraisal District, and I'm going to kind of go through the property tax system with you. I have a lot of slides, but I'm going to rush through some of the more overview type. Just at least it will introduce you to some of the concepts and things that's going on, so that I can actually have room at the end for questions and answers, as well as actually go to our website live and do some explore it with you while you're able to ask questions. So with that, let me get started here. And that's just me. And actually, my name is pronounced Cheryl, like cherry and church and chicken. But if you call me Cheryl, that's okay. But it is Cheryl Jordan. And I am the Director of Community Relations here at the Appraisal District. I've been here 34 years in a couple of different capacities. But I enjoy educating the public on the property tax system and what it is we do here at the Appraisal District. So who are the participants involved? Basically, you've got the Texas Legislature, the Appraisal District, Appraisal Review Board, the governing bodies, Texas Comptroller's Office or Property Tax Assistance Division, PTAD, County Tax Assessor Collector, and Property Owner. And I'm going to talk about those in just a bit here. So the agencies and officials, we have our taxing units, the Appraisal District, and then the Appraisal Review Board and state agencies. So taxing units, they're the governing bodies. They're the City Council, the School Board, the County Commissioners, Special Districts Board. So those are what we refer to as the taxing units. And we have 61 taxing units in Dallas County. We have 31 cities, 16 school districts, and 10 or 11 special districts. And then there's the tax assessor collector. John Ames is the tax assessor collector, and they collect taxes for the majority of the entities in Dallas County. Most of the jurisdictions contract with him to collect their taxes, and he's the one that sends out the tax bills and collects the taxes. The Appraisal District does not do that here in Dallas. So Appraisal District, we have a board of directors who hires the chief appraiser, and the chief appraiser establishes an appraisal office. We provide the necessary services, and then the board of directors also adopts a budget and a reappraisal plan, but the chief appraiser is the one that is responsible for all of the appraisals. We discover, list, and value properties in Dallas County. We administer the exemptions. We maintain the ownerships and mailing addresses, and we deliver a certified appraisal roll to the entities, and they ultimately use that. They provide that to their tax assessor collectors so that they then can send out the tax bills. But the first thing they do when they get their appraisal roll, the entities go and the taxing units, they actually have to adopt a tax rate. And actually, they're the ones who determine how much taxes you pay. We give them the value, but then they can increase or decrease that tax rate, which ultimately determines your value. And board of directors. And then we have there's the Appraisal Review Board is another party in the process. They are appointed by the Dallas County Local Administrative District Judge. They are an independent body of Dallas County citizens, and their responsibility is to settle disputes between the appraisal district and then the property owner. They're just kind of like the judge, a jury. They act as jurors. Then some of the state agencies, we have the Comptroller of Public Accounts, who they have a property tax assistance division. They provide a property value study. They actually study the appraisal districts to ensure that we're appraising property properly, because the school districts are funded and by the property tax, and they get local taxation. But what if we're not valuing properly, the state also contributes to the local school districts, independent school districts. They also review the appraisal district operations and procedures. They approve a lot of educational materials for the property tax profession, and they provide the training for the appraisal review board members. The appraisal review board members are not employees of the appraisal district. Like I said, they're citizens, a separate body, but they are trained by the comptroller's office. And then the comptroller's office also administers binding arbitration program. And then we have the Department of Licensing and Regulation, and they oversee and regulate the licensing of thousands of occupations, but the one most pertinent here is us, the appraisers. So they are the licensing authority for the appraisers here at the appraisal district. And then we have the Texas Education Agency, and they administer the statewide assessment program and accountability system for public education. And so they're the ones that administers the distribution of state aid and federal funding to the public schools. So they play an important part in this process as well. So, and the fourth and main participant is you, the property owner. You pay property taxes, very important to do that. You file your homestead exemptions, you elect the, you protest your values, and then you elect the taxing unit officials, your governing bodies. And then hopefully you will attend the public hearings and provide input on that tax rate that they adopt that determines how much taxes you pay. There are rules and regulations that we have to follow as we do our appraisal, carry on our appraisal business. And the Texas Property Tax Code and laws is the main authority, source, and guidance to the Texas property tax system. There's also the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practices that we provide, and that provides a minimum quality of control standards for us. And then, of course, the Texas State Constitution provides the structure and function of local, state, and government and the principles of taxation. Right now, the legislature is in session, and they're the ones that determine the laws that we have to follow. So the principles of property taxation system. Well, the taxation must be equal and uniform. Property must be valued at full market value. And that's something that I guess a lot of people have an issue with or don't understand is we have to value your property as if you were going to sell it. What could you sell it for? So full market value is what we're required to value the property. All property is taxable unless exempt by federal law or state constitution. You have your governmental buildings, your school buildings, those types of things, they're exempt by law. Property may not be valued above its market value. So of course, you know, we have plenty of the property owners telling us, oh, that's above my value. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's one of the requirements of the Constitution, that it can't be above the market value. And all property in the county must receive a single appraisal. Prior to the, back in 1979, Pivotal Bill created the centralized county appraisal district concept. Prior to that, each city, each school district, and the county could do their own appraisal. So you'd have 3 different appraisals, 3 different places to go to protest. So this all created back in 1979 to create a single appraisal district. So every county in Texas has an appraisal district. And then also a single appraisal review board for each appraisal district. So before that, you would have to go to, again, those 3 different places to protest your value. So property tax. So tax is measured according to value. And ad valorem means according to value. As of January 1, at least once every 3 years. So we have to appraise all properties at least once every 3 years. Well, in this and we have to be at 100% of market value. So we're appraising more than once every 3 years for sure. There's only one exception to appraising at market value. Well, I jumped ahead, so not the exception, but here's the definition of market value. It's the price at which a property would transfer for cash on its equivalent. And you can kind of see some of the other things there, but bottom line is simply stated what a willing buyer will pay and a willing seller will accept on the open market. That's basically what market value is. This is the exception I was talking about. There's a limitation on appraised value of a residence homestead. There's a section of the code for if you have a homestead exemption on your property, you had it on there the previous year, we cannot raise the value more than 10% from the appraised year from the previous year. I'll talk about that a little bit later, and that when I talk about homestead exemptions. I do have an example here, but I'll refer to it later after I've kind of talked about how we appraise and the different things going on there. So value and taxes. Value is the financial worth of the property. Tax is what you pay the government, which is also known as a levy. So those are two different things. So you have a value of property, and then you have tax or the levy that you pay, of course, based on that value and based on the tax rate. Okay, so we have at the appraisal district here in Dallas, we have commercial property, and of course the major property types there. We have these three major divisions. So for commercial property, you have your office, retail, hotels, industrial, things like that. Business personal property are the assets used in the production of income in those businesses. So we actually pick up the furniture, fixtures, and inventory of those properties. And then, of course, lastly, and what I will be focusing on in this presentation is residential property. Of course, you've got the different single-family residence, townhomes, condominiums, multifamily that's less than 5 units, manufactured homes, and vacant lots. So obviously, I think you know what single-family residences look like. Again, you have those, you have your townhomes, you have your condominiums, high-rises, and then multifamily, duplexes, triplexes, and then, of course, even the manufactured homes or mobile homes. And then the vacant lots. So we have to appraise vacant lots as well. So what do we do? How does this residential property appraisal work? We have over 5,000 neighborhoods in Dallas County. We've divided the county up into neighborhoods for residential properties. These are homogeneous market areas. Buildings of similar construction, quality, age, and addition, and they're typically defined by geographical boundaries such as some natural or man-made, major streets, highways, creeks, access to similar amenities. They share the same schools, retail, parks. So main thing is we've divided this county up into neighborhoods, and we're going to appraise at the neighborhood level. Okay, here's an actual depiction of an aerial view of neighborhoods up in Carrollton Farmers Branch ISD. Our neighborhoods don't have names that you would recognize, but we have a coding system that has where you see the 5ASS04. That's a specific neighborhood. Each one of those colors, each one of those the 5AS numbers, those are individual neighborhoods. I mean, you can see some are as small as 10 maybe 10 units, and you may have 600 or 700 properties in a neighborhood, but this is what that looks like. We have over 25 building classifications. So obviously not all single family residences are the same structure. So we have delineated it into building classifications. So every structure is assigned a building class. Buildings are classified according to their characteristics, the type of construction, architectural style, exterior materials, square footage range, quality, age, condition, all those things are taken into account. And these are specific and relative to the neighborhood. So building classes can differ by neighborhood. And what I mean by that is if we have a building class 12 in one neighborhood, it may be different than what a building class is in another neighborhood. So each neighborhood is kind of its own universe, if you will. Here's an example of a building class 2, and this is taken straight out of our manuals that the appraisers use. So this house is, as a rule, was built before 1945. It's on pier and beam. They usually don't have attached garage. There's some more criteria showing the features or the specifications of construction of that particular building class. Here's a building class 21. It's a very good quality custom brick house, veneer house. It's a better quality than a building class 18. It could have wood shingle or better quality composition shingle roofs. 3 or more baths is the norm. It can be on a slab or pier and beam foundation. So obviously, we're not going to compare class 21s to class 22s and so forth. And like I said, we do have 25 different building classifications. So what we do is we appraise by the neighborhood. We primarily use the sales approach to value. There is a cost and income approaches to value, but for residential, we mainly use sales approach. The neighborhood, we look at the neighborhood and the building classification. And the goal is to get at 100% of market value. We target neighborhoods, and we target them. Which neighborhoods we target for reappraisal each year is determined by ratios, a ratio study. We actually have UTD, University of Texas at Dallas. They do an external ratio study for us. We also do an internal ratio studies, actually several times a year. And we target neighborhoods. Typically, it can vary, but typically we target neighborhoods that are below 95% or greater than 105%. And then basically the ratio is taking our appraised value divided by sales price. And we look at those again by neighborhood, looking at by building class. Last year, in 2022, we had the biggest reappraisal effort that we've ever had, and we appraised 600,000 of the 662,000 residential properties that we have. That was the most we've ever done. The market dictated that. I mean, DFW right now is a hot market, so it's beginning to flatten out a little bit, thank goodness. So continuing on new construction. Yes, we appraise all new construction. We have new dwellings, remodels, room additions, repairs, demolitions, outdoor kitchens, swimming pools. We don't really get fences and gazebos unless it's an elaborate gazebo, but as far as adding it to the value. We obtain building permits, aerial photography, driving the neighborhood and concerned neighbors. We get building permits from all of the cities, all 31 cities provide us those building permits that people are supposed to file when they're getting ready to build or change or add or tear down a property. So of course, you know what new construction is. Again, it could be a whole new house. It could be adding on a room or adding on a bathroom or those gazebos or even adding a pool. And so what we do, we develop an appraisal model by neighborhood and building class. So we derive a value per square foot. We apply that to all the same building class in that neighborhood. And what this does is it results in a more accurate and equitable value. So that price per square foot. We also are required to determine the land value. We have to we come up with a total value, but we have to break it down between the improvement, that is the structure on the property, and then the land. So the way we determine land value is if there are lot sales in that particular neighborhood, obviously that's telling us what those lots are worth. We have what we call in the past several years, tear down sales. And a tear down sale is where a person buys a property that has a house or structure on it. They tear that house down. So what did they want? They simply wanted that lot. They wanted that land. So that, excuse me, that tells us that was a lot sale. That was a land sale, but it's a tear down. And then if neither of those things are available in that particular neighborhood, then we can use an allocation. And that's where we just take a typical ratio or proportion of land value to the building value or the total property value. So now that we've done the appraisals, and I didn't go over the calendar, but real briefly, we're out in the field from August through March doing our field appraisal and gathering all this information and getting the new construction even. So we send notices out once we've completed the reappraisal effort, and that's this time of year. So this is actually good timing for this particular program. Although many of you don't have homes yet, you'll at least be aware of when you do become a homeowner what to expect as far as in dealing with the appraisal district. So what we're going to do is we're going to mail notices of appraised value, not for all properties, and I'll talk about it on the next slide, but all notices of appraised value are placed on our website on all 850,000 properties that we have, okay? So who are we mailing these notices to? We're going to mail them to if there was an increase in the property's appraised value, if there was an ownership change, a loss of homestead exemption, new property, rendered property. Otherwise, notices are not mailed, but again, they're on our website. So if the value didn't change, if the property value actually decreased, we're not going to mail a notice. Here's the calendar that I was talking about, where we're out in the, like I said, August to January field work. February, we're still doing analysis. February through March was doing analysis and valuation. And then April through July, mid-April typically, through July is the appeals and protest process. And I'm going to talk about that. Typically, we mail notices on April the 15th, but this year we're mailing them a week later. On April the 21st is going to be the first mailing, and that's the majority of the notices. We have 3 mailings, but the majority of the notices are mailed out on will be mailed this year on April 21st. And the protest deadline is always 30 days from when that notice went out. And so 30 days from that is going to be May 22nd, because May 21st falls on a Sunday. So May 22nd is the protest deadline. So if you do own property and you might want to protest, you might, of all the things I say today, make a note of this date, May 22nd, that is the protest deadline. And then once we go through those appeals and protests, we then will certify the values to those taxing entities, the cities and the school districts. They then will have their hearings and determine tax rates, and then it starts the process of them mailing out their tax bill. So here's a taxing unit calendar. In August and September, they hold the public hearing and adopt the rate. October through January is the tax collection phase, and that's where the tax offices mails those statements, and then they collect the taxes. February 1st is starts the delinquent collection phase, and that's where penalties and interest begin to accrue. So you really don't want that to happen, because taxes are high enough, and so you start adding penalties and interest on top of it. It gets to be very, very expensive, very, very fast. Okay, so let's talk about this protest and appeals process. Who may file a protest? Well, the current owner, or you can hire somebody. You can hire a professional registered tax agent. You can appoint them, or if you are a leasee of the property, if the person is required to pay property taxes by the lease, that's typically for businesses. But ultimately it's the property owner or their agent. And when are you to file a protest? Well, the protest deadline is May 22nd. You can file as early as April 21st, because you can't file before that, because you don't know what the value is yet for 2023. So that's when we're going to mail those notices and put them on our appraisal district and release those 2023 values will be April 21st. What can be protested? Any appraisal district action that adversely affects the property owner's tax liability, anything that adversely. So we continue with that. What does that mean? Appraisals that exceed the market value of the property. The majority of protests are this, they say, oh, you have my value too high. Then you can also protest that the appraisal is unequal compared to other similar properties in your neighborhood. Or the inclusion of the property on the appraisal records altogether. Again, that's typically for businesses. They'll say, hey, I closed that business, it's not here. Real estate is a little more difficult there. Determination of the property's ownership. Hey, y'all got the wrong, you don't have me as the owner, or I am not the owner. I'm no longer the owner. You can protest that, but typically we're going to fix that without a protest, but you still have the right to do that. If we denied in part or whole of a partial exemption. If we denied an exemption, you have the right, you can protest that. And if we've identified the identification of tax units in which a property is taxable, this is also typically a business, because businesses can move, and they may be in the city of Farmers Branch one year, and the next year they're in DeSoto. So those are the things that can be protested. So how do you file a protest? Well, first of all, it must be in writing. The preferred method at the Dallas Appraisal District is to file online, and you have to use our U-File online protest system and settlement system. Let me explain that. You file online via our website, and that's where you actually go and pull up your account, and there will be a link in there that says U-File online protest and settlement. So without settlement, you can just protest without wanting informal settlement. And I'll talk a little bit more about that coming up as well. Without settlement means you don't provide us any of your documented evidence. You don't provide us anything. You're just, hey, protesting, schedule me for a hearing. If you file with settlement, that means you've provided us documentation, and appraisal would try to reach out to you and contact you and discuss your value informally. And we try to get those done so you don't have to go on to your hearing if we can settle that with you informally before your hearing is established. So if you can't file online, you don't have a computer, or it's not working, or you don't like computers, you can also just mail it or put it in our Dropbox. But again, it needs to be written hard copy. You can use an official protest form that we actually mail out with those notices of appraised value. They're also on our website. And the state comptroller has them as well. Or you can sign a handwritten letter. Just make sure you identify the property owner's name, the property identification to the address, and that you're indicate that you're dissatisfied with the value and provide us an opinion of value. But bottom line, it has to be written, but we prefer it to be online. Okay, so now what documents do you need to provide in order to be successful here? So you have to provide us documented evidence. We need something more than just your opinion. Okay, so a recent closing statement of the subject property. If you just bought this property recently, give us that closing statement. That's a very, very good indicator of what the market value is, because you just bought it. If you've had a recent independent fee appraisal done, you've refinanced your house, or you want to just get an independent fee appraisal to use for evidence for us in your protest. Sales of comparable properties. You go to a realtor or a broker to give you a comparative market analysis. You can go to realtors. We tell you to do this. You have to do some due diligence. You have to do some homework. How do you know our value is too high? Unless you've kind of done some homework on your own to make that determination. So we go to a realtor, tell them, hey, I want to fight that appraisal district. I want to fight them on my value. I think it's too high. And in this market, they'll give you 3 or 4 comparable sales in your neighborhood, similar to your properties. That's what comparable means. And of course, they don't charge you. You're a potential client. So they're going to give you that free of charge. And in this market, what I was going to say is oftentimes they'll tell you that, actually the appraisal district is a little bit low because the market is just been climbing so much here. But those are sales of comparable properties is a huge piece of evidence that you can provide. Or if you've got, you provide us a professional estimate, if you have some needed repairs, if you have a roof or foundation issues, bring us photos of those physical issues or conditions. Take a picture of the cracks in the house or in the foundation. Those are the types of things that you can also, an engineering report and property surveys. Those are these are the documented evidence that we're talking about. So I've talked about settlement. So we have informal and formal hearings, okay? An informal hearing is where you settle it with the Dallas Appraisal District appraiser, okay? You just kind of one-on-one, we're gonna settle it with you. Now, we're gonna do that on the phone or via email. And then if there's also the formal hearing. That's where you actually attend your appraisal review board hearing. And let's talk about the informal right now. The informal hearing process, again, if you disagree with our value, the proposed market value, the owner must first file a protest and provide that evidence. Then the appraiser will contact the owner for an informal review via phone or email. Otherwise, you go on to your formal hearing. And let's talk about the formal hearing process. Again, you must file a protest, and that written protest. The appraisal review board is going to send out a hearing notice at least 14 days prior to your scheduled hearing date. And we also post that on our website, on your account on our website. We'll also post the evidence that we're going to use in the hearing on the website. What we do is provide you a PIN, a personal identification number, on your hearing notice. That's what you'll need to enter in on our website to see that evidence. So that's the PIN is on the hearing notice. And if you also received an appraisal notice, that same PIN is there as well. Or you can ask us to simply mail you the evidence. If you don't want to just view it or you don't want to print it out, we can mail that to you as well. Continuing with this formal hearing process, so the property owner, you will attend the hearing or you provide your evidence. most of the hearings now, COVID taught us a lot of things. COVID taught us that we don't have to be in each other's faces to get business done. We're a lot more efficient by having these telephone hearings, and that's where you call in for your hearing. If you want, we do default to the telephone hearing. If you want to have an in-person hearing, we'll give you one. Just make sure you ask us that you say, hey, I want an in-person hearing, and that's where you actually show up here and go into the hearing with the appraisal review board. If you don't show up for your hearing, whether that's telephone hearing or in person, whichever one you had requested, and if you did provide us the evidence in advance, that's going to be read in. The ARB members are going to review it, and then they'll make their determination based on that evidence. However, if you don't show up and you did not provide any evidence, the ARB is going to dismiss your hearing because they have nothing to look at. The hearings typically take about 15 minutes. There's the appraisal district. They'll have 5 minutes to present their case. The property owner has 5 minutes to present their case, about 2 minutes each for rebuttal. The hearing will close and the ARB member or members will make their decision at the end of that 15-minute hearing. And then they will send what we call an order determining protest. They'll mail that out to you in about 2 weeks after that hearing is done. So you'll have a document of what happened, what their ruling was in that hearing. If you disagree with the findings of the appraisal review board, you then you can go to judicial review or binding arbitration. If the owner can file these, if they disagree with the ARB hearing results, you must file a petition for review. That's a lawsuit with district court. Or you can file for binding arbitration with the appraisal district, who, and I'm misspelling there, who sends it to the state comptroller. And that's just a different process. You have to do that within 60 days after receiving that notice of order determining protest by the appraisal review board. Okay, let's talk about some money saving things now. Okay, exemptions. The exemptions reduce your taxes. They reduce your value and ultimately reduce your taxes. Filing an exemption application is free. The reason I say that, there are companies out there that will try to get you to let them file for you, and they will charge you part of your savings or charge you a flat fee. It's free, it's easy, so you should never pay someone for that. What is an exemption? It excludes value from taxation. And partial exemptions excludes part of the value. Absolute or total exemptions excludes all of the value. That would be like your charitable organizations, your religious organizations, things of that nature is for the total exemptions. So the types of residential exemptions, you have the residence homestead, the age 65 or older, a disabled person, a disabled veteran, surviving spouse. Those are the types of residential exemptions. What are the benefits of these exemptions? They lower your taxes. They limit the increase in value. I alluded to this earlier. That's that 10% capped value. So if you have the homestead on your property, you had to have the homestead the previous year. So this to go forward, it limits the amount that we can raise the value for the calculation of your taxes. So that's huge. In a market where values are going up 15 and 20% a year, that 10% cap helps quite a bit. So if you don't have the homestead and say you have several properties, and I'll talk about the criteria in just a second, it's only on homesteaded property. It also, another benefit is there's a tax ceiling for the age 65 or older and the disabled person. It limits the school taxes as mandated by the state, and the city and the county have the option to offer that tax ceiling. The surviving spouse of a person who is age 65 or older, a disabled person or disabled veteran, the surviving spouse may continue the exemption and or ceiling in most instances. You could transfer that ceiling percentage for the over 65 or disabled person. If you buy another property, you can transfer that to the percentage to another property. Let's talk a little bit about that limitation of appraised value. I want to give you a mathematical example. So here, the current year market value, let's say, is $400,000. The current year's appraised value is $308,000, and the appraised value In this particular example, that came from last year, or the appraised value is $308,000. There's a homestead exemption. It's going to be subtracted from that appraised value. That 20% is going to be subtracted. And then in addition, if there's a flat exemption, there's $61,600, let's say in this example, is what that 20% is. So their taxable value is $246,400. So rather than paying tax on the $400,000 or even the 308, you're going to pay tax on the $246,400. That's a big savings there for you. Okay, so that's that tax limitation and capped value. Also, there's a deferral benefit. This is where you can postpone payment of the taxes if you have an age 65 or older exemption, or if you have a disabled person exemption. It eliminates that late payment penalty, but it doesn't eliminate the penalties already accrued prior to the filing, but it does lower the late payment interest rate to 5% a year, and that's a huge savings. However, the deferred taxes become due when the ownership changes or the owner dies. Those taxes become due within about 180 days, I believe it is. Deferral affidavit is filed with the appraisal district. So you file your homestead exemptions with the appraisal district, and you file your deferral affidavit with the appraisal district. Please note that most mortgage companies want full payment of those taxes. They don't allow deferral because they're on the hook if something goes wrong. So just be aware of that. So who qualifies for these exemptions? The qualification for the residence exemption is you must be an owner. Prior to last year, you had to be the January 1 owner. But now we actually prorated. The law changed, and they allow a partial proration of that homestead on. It became effective last year. There's also an heirship owner eligibility for exemptions that began in 2020. So, in many instances where mom or dad or grandma died, you've got the children or the grandchildren living in the house, and they weren't able to, maybe they died without a will, or you can't afford to go to probate. Well, this allows for people, the person living in the house, the son or the daughter or the cousin, to actually file for and get that exemption. Again, that just started in 2020. You must occupy it as your primary residence. And now I talked about that new proration based on the occupancy date. You can't have an exemption anywhere else in Texas or anywhere else, period. You must provide a copy of a valid Texas driver's license or Texas ID, and it must match the property address. So if you buy a property, you need to go ahead and change that license if you want to get this homestead exemption when you file. You can be temporarily away for up to 2 years. There's a place on the application to state that. Let's say your job moves you somewhere, or if you're going to school somewhere, you can be temporarily away and still retain that exemption. Or if you're a resident of a facility providing services related to the health infirm, in other words, a nursing home, you still can retain that exemption. So how do you file it? You file it with the appraisal district. It's no cost. Again, beware of those companies charging. We are going to mail an application to all new home owners. Each year if you bought a property, we get that deed that was filed. We know you're a new homeowner, and we're going to mail that application to you. We've already mailed those out this year. Also, the application is available on the appraisal district website. You can print that application. Typically, you can file we do have a application online filing for homesteads. We were recently hacked, so that's not there right now, but we think it's going to be there in a couple more weeks. That's one of the last things we haven't reinstated yet. Or you can request us to mail you an application. Okay. And so what you need to do is complete that and submit that application along with the required documentation, namely your driver's license, a copy of your valid driver's license. And again, so you can file up to 2 years late. You can file for 2021 and 2022 as of now. So that's you. So if you haven't filed, you can go back 2 years. Okay. To contact us, there's our website, dallascad.org. There's our phone number. Customer service is the best way to start. Then the residential appraisal department's number is there. That's also, all these numbers are also on our website. So thank you. And now questions and hopefully answers.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate it. That's so much information.
It's a lot. I know.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, but that's good. That's so, I mean, I've learned a few more things myself, so I don't think you ever learn too much about property taxes.
Yes, ma'am.
We did have one question that came up. Can or should new home buyers research property taxes, property tax information, etc., as they consider neighborhoods? And is it an important that while you're sorry, I lost my place. While taxes may seem high or increase, neighborhood values are increasing as well, which is good for its own sellers. It's a little confusing.
I'm not sure I understand that.
I know, Marianne, you want to clarify your question a little bit?
Yes, what I was aiming at was we've got several homeowners that are certainly concerned about their property taxes increasing, but I was going to shine a light on if your property taxes are increasing, and I don't want new homeowners to get scared. A lot of times it's also because, unless it's an error oversight or the appraisal wasn't done correctly, then it may be that the neighborhood value is increasing, which is super important if you're going to sell your home. That's what I was leaning towards.
Well, we're going to appraise each property individually. Now, when I say appraise by neighborhood, we're going to do that ratio study to determine which neighborhoods need to be reappraised. And let's just say there are 3 different building classifications in that neighborhood. What we're going to look at is, say there's building class 5 and building class 8s and building class 15s. What we're going to look at, what did those building class 5s sell for in that neighborhood within the past, say, 12 months. We're going to look at and come up with a price per square foot. What are they selling for per square foot? We're going to look at what did the building class 8s sell for, and then the building class 15s. And then we're going to apply those square footages to the other building classes of the same building class in that neighborhood. So that's how the value is determined. It is determined by your neighbors who are buying and selling and buyers buying properties in that neighborhood. That's what determines the value.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. And I think part of Marianne's question too was just that, sometimes home buyers, they're just worried about the home itself and how much that costs, but they need to consider what those property taxes have been, historically on that particular house they're looking at, right?
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Because I can go to the website and kind of show you a place where you can do some calculations. And
please do.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me do that. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, so you see my screen, right?
Yes.
I'm going to make it a little bit bigger just so you can see it better. All right. So where I'm going now, if you can see my little pointer here, I'm going to go down to where it says paying taxes. Okay. So we're going to click on the paying taxes. Then we're going to go over here to the second item where it says online property tax estimator. And this is where you can play around with anywhere in Dallas County. So what you do is you'll put in the value of, say, what you're looking at, maybe what you're paying for, or what the values are in the neighborhood, or value of a particular property you're looking at. So let's just say $300,000. Let's just type in 300,000. Okay. Obviously, everybody pays the county tax, a hospital tax, and Dallas College tax, but you will select which city you're looking in. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick City of Dallas, and it populates the tax rate is what it's doing. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick the school district, and I'm going to select Dallas ISD, and it populates the tax rate there. And then down here is the calculate button. So we click that calculate button, and my screen is big, so I have to scroll down. It doesn't show. So I'm going to scroll down and see where that calculation is down here. So here, I didn't select any exemptions. This is without any exemptions. on this $300,000 property in the city of Dallas, Dallas ISD. It breaks out the taxes by the entity, and the total estimated taxes right here. So on a $300,000 property using the 2022 value tax rates, excuse me, the tax would be $7,531. Now, let's go say, okay, this is going to be my homestead. So I want to see what the tax is going to be with that homestead. So I'm going to click here and select general homestead. And I'm going to go find that calculate button again. Click on that. Again, I got to scroll down. And so now the taxes is $5,906. That's a huge savings just because you have the homestead and qualify for the homestead exemption. Okay. Then let's just say you're age 65. All right. In addition to it being your homestead, now you've turned 65, or you may be 70 when you bought this property. And let's click that calculate again. And we're going to scroll down to the bottom. And now the tax is only $4,000. So exemptions, this is a prime example of how many thousands of dollars that homestead exemption can save you. Okay. So there's that. Are there some other questions while I go get out of here? I'm going to go back home and hopefully answer some other questions. why don't we go look at a property? Anybody want to volunteer a street address, or I can just pull up something? I'll just go Jones. I don't know this person. I'm just typing in Jones. You can search by the name or the address. If I can type Jones and enter or search, and down here's all there are 700 properties with the name of Jones. So I'm just going to pick this one right here. Let's see. Let's pick one with the one here on Trillium. Janet Jones. I don't know Miss Jones. Not picking on Miss Jones. Just using this as an example. This is live. Okay, so there's this account. It provides the property location, the legal description, the lot and block, and the value of the property over here to the right. You can see the improvement value is $267.60. The land is $50,000. The total market value is $310,760. This has a cap value. The cap value on this property is $268,897. We last reappraised it last year, and we reappraised it the year before that as well. And here's the owner's name. I'll come back up to this in a minute, but here's the owner's name. If there was more than one owner, we would indicate that there. She's the only owner. Here's the information. Here's the building class. I told you about building class. There, it's identifying this is a building class 16. The year it was built, we talk about the age, the desirability, and that's basically a kind of a depreciation tool. We have 8 categories. We go from unsound all the way up to excellent. The living area of the property, it is 100% complete. It's not under construction. It's a 2-story. And then over here, we talk about it's a frame on slab foundation with a hip roof, and so forth. It has 2.5 baths, 1 kitchen, 4 bedrooms, 1 fireplace. We talk about there's an additional improvement. There's an attached garage. We break that out. We break out the land, talking about the land value. What is it zoned as? And then there's that price, the value on the land. And then if there are any exemptions, it shows it here under the exemption section. And as you can see, homestead exemption. So this property has a homestead. It's actually in DeSoto. And the city of DeSoto obviously does not give a homestead exemption, but the DeSoto ISD, that state mandated amount of $40,000. Dallas County gives an exemption of 20%, and that's that 20% of the value. The college, the hospital district. And then here, it even provides the estimated exemption taxes for each of those with the value, taking that taxable value, multiplying times the tax rate, it gives you that estimated tax. And over here, the total tax on this property is $5,981. Okay, going back to the top, let's say you don't have an exemption and you wanted to get an exemption. You would go and click on this. If there was an online, it would be right here. And like I said, we hope to have that in a couple of weeks. But let's just look at this homestead exemption. You're going to print the form, and there's the form right there. Let me ask this question. How many of the people online do you think are homeowners, or all of these potential homeowners? Can
We have
someone
a
answer?
mix of folks that are
Okay.
on the Zoom
Okay.
right now.
So some are homeowners
Mhm.
already.
Right.
Okay. Then hopefully they would have already filled this out. If they haven't, please do. And it's partially filled out for you. You just have to make sure you fill it out completely. Every box you need to check. Do you own the property for which you're seeking? Yes, I would hope so. Does more than one person? And so every box applicable has to be checked. If it's not, we will return it and deny it. Typically, you're going to check the general residence homestead, but if you're age 65 or older, you can check that box in addition. Or if you're a disabled person, you can check that box. Or if you're a surviving spouse, there's that one. If it's a late file, this is important. This late file residence homestead exemption prior years. This is where once you print it out, you would write in the year you're late filing for. So if say you bought this property in 2021 and you have not yet gotten your your exemption, type in 2021 there, because at the top, see, this application is for 2023. Okay, so now we know that you want a late file in addition, so we would apply that. And there's a page 2. This question here, I'm going to go ahead and answer it. A lot of people, no, not the on what date did you occupy, but there's one about the acreage. Yeah, step 4B. How many acres or fraction of an acre? Just put less than 1 acre. If most people are on a lot, you can just put less than an acre or on a lot. But anyway, this is the actual application. You got to put your driver's license, date of birth, phone number, email, sign it. And if there's a spouse, both need to sign it, and both need to provide their driver's license, a copy of that. Don't worry about this top. This page is for affidavits. Typically, if there's multiple owners, then we're going to add, you may have to do this for the age 65 or older. But for the, I want to get to the one about the heir. Here it is. Affidavit for heir property. There's its affidavit. You complete this affidavit along with the application, and then submit that. And here's all the explanation of how to do it. We even have it in Spanish. So that's the actual application. So I think that was important for people to see. Any other questions that you can read me off the chat?
Okay. No, Cheryl, I don't see any more. I think.
Okay. And here's that appraisal notice from last year. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the new notice there. But there's that appraisal notice giving you all the information you need. All right, I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll give you an air applause. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, yay. Thank you, Ms. Cheryl.
Oh.
You're welcome.
Okay.
It was great.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Just a reminder, hope you're ready to vote. Early voting starts later this month. General election May 6th. And you're voting for your mayor and your city council persons. And also at the bottom to the right is the website for you to view our YouTube channel. And next week we will have this uploaded on there. So thank you, everyone. I'll stop sharing. Well, I'll stop the recording. And if you want to take a moment and note that website. But we definitely appreciate your time tonight. And thank you. Thank you again, Cheryl. We appreciate you.
All right. You're welcome. Have a good Easter, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Don't miss our next workshop.